Okay, I want to go over some of the basics of my jetting calculator. This right here is the graph that this spreadsheet creates as a result of all the information that you put into it. This blue graph is the richness graph, okay, from 1/8 throttle to wide open throttle. The gray graph is the ideal jet. And this calculator does not tell you what the best main jet is to use. There's just too many freaking variables for that. So it depends upon you getting the main jet correct, right here, and getting the idle jet correct, right here. Some people set the idle jet to compensate for too much leanness around 1/4 to 3/8 throttle. With my method, you don't have to do that. Set the idle correct, set the main jet correct, and use the calculator to get the needle correct. Okay, the clip position of the needle is not there to get the mid-range jetting correct. It's there to get this beginning jetting correct. Okay, if you get that correct and then this is incorrect, if it's too high up, this is acceptable. This amount of highness is acceptable. If you get it too high, that means that your needle taper is too steep. If it's too low, it means it's too shallow. Okay? And a lot of needles come on stock bikes that are just incorrect. Sometimes they're horrible. So this black graph right here shows the combination of needle and main jet and its richness. And that little kink right there is showing you that it's opening at right or 1/4 slide open. This is not throttle openings. This is slide openings, okay? Which is almost the same. This shows the idle jetting. Okay, and this right here is showing the difference between the actual blue graph and the gray graph. Okay, as you can see, the blue graph is higher than the gray one, which means it's too rich, okay, for that zone. Right here, you're able to choose between racing and street trail use. And this is of my 55cc street ride, and so number 2, street trail, is selected, which means it's a straight line between idle jet richness and main jet richness. You have to understand, though, main jet richness is not just the main jet. The needle affects the main jetting too. And if you see, when you use this, when you change the needle, you're going to have to change the main jet also. Okay, if you look at my chart, where is it? Here it is. You'll see that the needle taper has full effect from 5/8 throttle on. The width of it, of the straight shaft of it, its main effect is about right here, between 3/8 and 5/8. What is that? 1/2, yeah. And the clip is mostly affecting the beginning, like up to right around 3/8. Okay, and then it has a lesser effect. So when people change the clip, try to change the mid-range, well, they can affect the mid-range. But that's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is with a needle taper. Okay, and you can see the effects of the cutaway, about maximum effect at 1/2 throttle. Main jet has a little bit of effect at 1/8, almost none. So yeah, let's get back. If you look at the tabs right here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tabs. You click on the tab to go to that sheet. This is the Mikuni sheet. This is the Mikuni TMS sheet, the Keyhine sheet, Del Ordo sheet, and the old carbs sheet, which is for any other carb other than Mikuni, Del Ordo, and Keyhine. Okay, so yeah, you see it's beginning to lean, and then it kicks up in the direction of richness. Okay, high is rich, low is lean. Okay, so it's too lean right here, it's too rich right here. But see where that kicks in? That's because that's when the needle taper kicks in. Let's say if this purple right here is your float ball, okay, and you've got the main jet, or I mean the needle jet right here, and then the extension of it is the main jet going all the way down here. But that needle sticks into it. What is it? So the needle sticks into it, and at a certain amount of slide opening, that needle taper starts to rise above that needle jet narrow. So that's when it kicks in. And in this case, I've got it set to kick in at about 1/4 throttle. Okay. If I had it kick in at 1/8 throttle, it would make this even richer right here, which I don't want to do. If I want to lower that, I can have it kick in a little bit later. So yeah, you can affect this whole area right here with the needle clip. But if you get any really big variations here, it's best to address it with a change in the needle taper. Without using a calculator like this, it's really, really hard. I thought I knew about carburetors until I got a Suzuki AX100. And it had horrible carburation and just kicked my butt. Nothing I tried had an effect. And I came to realize I've got 3 or 4 things overlapping at the same time. And when you change one, you change others. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. It'll be like, you know, maybe by the time I die, I'll figure this carb out. So I made this jetting calculator, and it saved my butt. When I was done with that carburetor, it was like an electric bike. It was perfect all the way through. So yeah, I'm a big believer in jetting carburetors. I started out with the JD Jetting, their spreadsheet, but it just showed the differences in the needle jet areas. Okay, it was a comparative type of visual graph. This does way more than that. It includes everything together. So the main thing that when that kicks in is right here. This is the slide open millimeters at taper start. And by taper start, I mean when you're opening that slide, when that taper just is at the very top, beginning that taper is at the very top of that needle jet. How much that slide is open, that's this number right here. You can measure that. You can measure it if you've got a digital caliper, and you can, keep taking the dimensions on the needle until you can find where it levels off, stops changing, and you put a Marcelot dot on it, put in your slide, put your finger in here on top of the needle, and move that slide, and by eyeballing it right here, you can see when that dot is right at the top of the needle jet. Okay, and then when you do that, you can put a mark on the slide here, measure this distance, and subtract it from the cardboard size. And that will tell you this distance right here, the slide open at taper start. But a lot of people don't want to do that, so I've got this section right here, which causes you to have to measure 2 things: the needle base height and the needle jet millimeters below the venturi. On my Mikuni 18, the top of this needle jet 2.4 millimeters lower than this base of the venturi. Okay, so you have to measure that. I just used a piece of solder, bent it, and then measured it. The other thing you have to measure is inside the slide. There's a base right here that needle, the needle clip rests upon the base. From that base to the top of the slide, that distance needs to be measured, and that goes right here. Well, it's actually, I'm saying it wrong. You measure that distance, and then you take the slide distance from the top to the bottom here, and you subtract this distance from it, and it gives you this distance. The base for that needle clip to right here. This is hard to measure, so you take this measurement and you take this measurement, and you take this minus that. So that winds up right here. So on mine is 12 millimeter height and 2.4 millimeter where the needle jet is below the venturi. And then the clip position right here. And in red right here, it will tell you what this number should be. Okay. If you want to go, it's not automatic because this is still allowing you to manually put in whatever you want. Which on my Suzuki AX, I had to abuse it. That base where that slide needle sets on, I had to use my Dremel and gouge out a section so that needle would go farther down. Okay. So in a case like that, if you make any changes like that, well, you can still measure and still use that. But I didn't want to make this automatic because, you know, you can also use washers. You can make your own little washers out of like a water bottle cap. You drill a hole in it, a little bit bigger than the size of the needle, and then cut around it with scissors and put that washer under the needle clip. You can raise the needle farther than you can by putting the clip at the very lowest position. So you've got those two extremes, and so that's why this is manual input. So yeah, you look at this, and if this is like going way down here, that means you want that taper to kick in soon. I mean, really soon, maybe at 1/8. Okay, to stop that leanness, that trend toward leanness. So, and the opposite holds true. If it's too rich here, you'd want the needle taper to kick in later, like maybe at 3/8 slide opening. The max air velocity is only used for the calculation of the idle, and that is determined by the data you put right here, and it gives you the carb air velocity right here at maximum RPM. And if you don't know the transfer duration, put 120 for a street bike or trail bike and 120 for a racing bike. Below the graph on the Mikuni TM VM page is the data for all the needles. And if you modify any of those needles, or you find another needle you want to use, you can just measure. D2 is 20 millimeters from the top, D3 is 30 millimeters, 40 millimeters. At those marks, you would just measure the width of the needle with your digital calipers. So you can name it anything you want and put all the data in, and then when you put in right here the needle ID being identity, you would just put the same name as what you use down there. Like I've got a modified 4F18, so I named it 4F18 space mod. So The needle shot height. Let me see if there's anything strange I need to cover here. Okay, this right here is this section right here. It's asking you if there's the best idle jetting. And then right here, when you hover the pointer over a cell that has a red corner, comment will display. And right here, it tells you how to correctly set the idle jetting. If you've done that, you would enter yes. This number you would enter right here. And that sets the left side of the gray graph. I wanted to show you something. If you change that to erasing, did you see what happened with the gray graph? It bows upward. Racing bikes like a little bit richer mid-throttle. Street bikes, because you can slowly roll on a street bike, doesn't like that richness. Okay. So, yeah, use this will left side of the comparison graph, and if you have, well, this asks you if it's right or wrong. The program depends upon you having that main jet correct. Okay. Or like in my case, I know it was just the last time I tested it was just a tad rich. Okay. So then all the details show up right here, and instead of entering that number right here, I entered just a little bit less. Instead of entering 0.59, I entered 0.58, which made the gray graph just a tad lower. Okay. That's what I imagine what would be the perfect jetting. Okay. So then when I change the needle, let's say if I go to 4DH11, look what happens. Well, look here. What does that mean? That means now our main or wide open throttle jetting is too lean. So I've got to go to a bigger main jet. Now it's right, but it doesn't really like that needle because we're too lean. It's better to have it a little bit too rich than a little bit too lean. See the red graph, how low it goes? Okay, so let's see if we got any. All that is just easy to understand and covered on my site. The Mikuni TMX, TMS. These are the needles for those two carburetors. And there are some Mikuni VM needles that you can also use. These three right here are Mikuni VM needles. And why would you do that? Because most of these needles completely suck ass. They do. Whoever designed them did not have this calculator. I know, that's so sorry. So, yeah, look, it's got a Mikuni VM needle. The beautiful graph we have here. So there's nothing out of the ordinary here. Let's go on to Keyheim. Oh, on this one, because I don't have the data for all the needles, you have to also enter the needle length, end to end. On the Keyheim, you've got, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit weird. You've got three sections right here. This is for the larger carbs, 33 to 38 millimeter. This is for the smaller PWK and smaller PE carbs. And this is stock needles. I think the KDX 200 comes with the R1173N, I believe. So when you enter in the codes for any of these, it will tell you the taper degrees and taper minutes, which translates to full degrees right here. A minute is you divide minutes by 60 to get the fraction of degrees. 15 divided by 60 is 0.25 plus 1 is 1.25. The L1 length on keyhind is really, really weird. L1 is an imaginary length. I shouldn't even go into it. It's mind-boggling. So that's not the true taper length. This is the taper length over here. So with the needle code, you know the taper degrees, the taper length, and the diameter of the straight section. Okay? And the diameter of the straight section is very important because it affects this area right here. And it's too lean or too rich, that's to blame. Well, also, if you have a 200 on up, after about 10 years or so, the needle jets, which is the hole that the needle goes in and out of, just above the main jet, is it washes out. And sometimes you can't even tell by looking at it. It's the difference is so small. Sometimes you can. You look at a 20-year-old bike and you can see the oval hole there. And what happens then is you get really rich at the beginning. So it does that, you know when you go riding, it's idling, then you just give it lots of throttle because you want to jump up to here, get out of this rich section out here. So if you're using this this calculator and it shows to be correct right here, but by riding it, it's rich as hell right there. You need to consider that that needs to be replaced. So yeah, we've got these three sections right here, and the breakdown of those three is right here. This is for the big carbs. This is for needle codes. The first letter, middle letter, and last letter, and what they mean. Okay. So let me see what else. Oh yeah. So there's also all these down here. These are needles that came with these different bikes, okay, or that were available through the dealer for these different bikes. So I've got all the data for them, and you can put custom data in here, like the JD red, JD blue needles here. So if you use section right here, any of these needles or a custom needle, you ignore this right here. So there's four sections, 1, 2, 3, and down there is 4. Okay. So you enter the needle ID right here. If it's for the down low section, you're set. If it's for one of these three, you also have to make sure that it's here, here, or here, depending on what carb you've got or what needle you're dealing with. Okay, so these two have to match. Okay, one of these three and this have to match if it's not that low section. And you've got the same deal with the slide bottom, the base. Yeah, you subtract one dimension from the other dimension, and you get this number right here. Yeah, there's nothing strange about it other than that. Let's go on to the next one. Same deal here. Let's see the needles down here. Oh crap, there's no needles. Have you seen how many needles are available for a Del Orto carb? Let me show you. Okay, we got one chart. 2 charts, 3 charts, 4 charts, 5 charts. The length of that. 6 charts, 7 charts, 8 charts. You get an idea how much work it is entering all that information? I may do it eventually. This Corona scam's given me plenty of free time, so I'll probably get to it eventually. So, yeah, it's all pretty much the same. Like the Mikuni like the Mikunis, you just enter the ID and nothing else to worry about. Keyhine's the only weird one like that. But the Del Orto and the old card, it goes by this scheme right here, using these letter designations for dimensions. So you enter in the diameters, the lengths, and if it's a dual taper, you would enter in 4 right here. A dual taper is going to have also D and E. Some of the Del Orto needles have 2 tapers and then a straight section. So you would have, well, G is equal to B, so I don't think I even asked for G. It's just redundant. So you also have F. Yeah, there it is, F. So you just enter in those dimensions from my website, because they're all right here. A, B, C. Well, it's just ABC, it's just a single taper. The width, the length of the taper, and the width at the tip. Single taper. So there's that. I've got on my website, these charts do not show the angles. So if my graph shows that you need a richer angle or a more shallow angle, you need to know these angles without having to enter in all the information of these and going through all these. I've got a web page that shows all these angles. I at least did that much work. So when you buy my jetting calculator, you will have access to that information. The old cards use, that was old card section. Let's look at the Del Orto. Oh, there it is. Okay, I already did it on this version. Click here for the Del Orto needles web page, and it will show you the angles. Yeah, old carbs use the same deal that the Del Ortos. Usually, old carbs only have single needle. Single needles. So, make sure you get the main jet right. When you got all the information in, you put this number right there so that gray graph matches that richness right there. If you know that you're richer on the idle jet than it should be, then the number that goes right here will have to be smaller than this number right here. If you know it's leaner than it should be, then this number here should be richer than this number right here, or higher. If it's just right, put this number right here. And that sets the gray graph. And the gray graph is your point of comparison. You can see right here, oh, it's a little bit leaner right there. But that amount of leanness, you're not even going to feel. The beauty about using these calculators is that you can get it just nearly perfect. But in real life, this I would feel. This is enough. This I do feel. This carbon bike does not like to have the throttle open right away. It likes me to slowly open it as the RPM builds up. So what is that difference right there? About 3 or 4%? Yeah, so I would take advantage to say 3% you're not even going to feel. But even if it's at 3%, you don't feel it. You can see it on the graph and say, oh wow, on a humid day or a cold day or whatever, that's going to be more accentuated. So I should take care of that and put in a different needle with a different taper. So this spreadsheet will make you a jetting expert. I'm serious. It's amazing what I've learned by using this. And it's not that hard. You just follow the directions. I say measure A, measure B, subtract B from A to get C, and put that number here. It's just a matter of following directions. Okay. And if you are ever befuddled, or you reach a certain point and you can't seem to make a breakthrough, just send me the spreadsheet. I'll say, okay, what you did wrong is this number should be corrected. And then you might come back and say, well, that's below the maximum needle clip. I'm like, so put a washer there, or dribble it out. Your motorcycle does not exist to be served by you. It exists to serve you. So I have no qualms whatsoever in modifying the crap out of my bike to make sure it's right. I don't care what anyone else says. If it runs right, that's what makes me happy. So that's it, man. Jetting count. This is the cat's meow. This is it, man. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks for watching.